Hey, Brian Goulet here of gouletpens.com, and my wife and I the other day were shooting a segment for Goulet Q&A, and so the theme was platinum, and one of the questions we got was about, can you basically go over the whole platinum line, because I don't really know anything about it. I was like, okay, well that's cool, and so we ended up going over it, and we kind of put together a pretty comprehensive video on the whole platinum line, and it was so good that I actually wanted to break it out apart from the Q&A video, which is over an hour long. So I wanted to make it its own little video and kind of explain to you the whole thing of what the platinum line is all about. So the context is going to be a little strange, and we talk about some other questions and stuff like that because it's being pulled out of a Q&A video, but the content's really solid, so I wanted to just put it into its own video. That way you could have it for your own reference. So without further ado, here is Rachel and I talking about the platinum pen line. But we got a lot of good questions for this week, so we'll go ahead and get into it. The first one here is going to be pretty comprehensive. At Shreddy Eddie on Twitter.
I got a lot of pens that you can't see it on the desk now. I got almost one of everything to show. Yeah. So I like playing pens.
Yes. So at Shreddy Eddie on Twitter said, I'm considering picking up a platinum fountain pen in the near future. Would you be able to quickly go over their lineup? Awesome vids. Cool. Well, that's a heck of a question you got in there in 140 characters.
The lineup's a little nuts. It's been interesting trying to figure out how to present it on our website. There's all these collections and sub-collections, and based on the type of finish, we're working to figure out how to streamline that a little bit. We picked up a wider range of platinum last summer just to kind of dabble, see how it did. It's, we never really fully featured it. We're probably due to do some feature videos.
Yeah, and that's part of why.
The Century is a fantastic pen. I think it's a bit underrated. It's in the same price point as a lot of other popular pens.
Yeah, and there's some unique things going on with Platinum's pens, which is part of the reason why we wanted to feature it this week in the Q&A, was to really kind of showcase what is actually a really, really cool line of pens.
Well, let's start at the cheap end and work our way up.
So pretty much everybody's familiar with the Platinum Preppy. It's a $4 pen. It's just a solid pen. It's a great starter pen. You get them free in several of the Noodler's 4.5 ounce ink bottles, which I think is where a lot of people get exposed to them first.
Yeah.
They're easily convertible to an eyedropper.
A little bit of silicone grease and O-ring. You can fill it. We actually just measured this morning 3.5 milliliters.
I mean, that's a lot of ink.
That's like almost 2 ink samples.
That's a lot of ink in a little pen like that. It's got a well-sealed cap, so it's just, it's reliable. It starts up well. It's not super smooth.
I mean, it's a $4 pen, so...
Most of the Platinum pens actually are not super smooth. I think that's kind of like their thing.
They're very stiff.
They're toothy and stiff. That's kind of their deal. But these pens...
they're solid.
Yeah, they're just reliable writers.
The Preppy you can also get in a highlighter or a marker tip. So basically you can use fountain pen ink, but it has kind of like a foam chisel tip. So the marker is like a little bit thinner, and the highlighter is more of like a fatter chisel tip. So you can, and then they make several different inks you can use as highlighter inks. Noodler's has a whole highlighter line. So that's pretty cool to use fountain pen ink in a highlighter marker format.
Yeah.
So that's the Preppy. Its grown-up brother, if you will, is the Plaisir. The Plaisir has the same nib, same setup as the Preppy. It just has a nicer aluminum body. Comes in, I think, 10 different colors. Nice shiny aluminum. You can't convert it to an eyedropper because of the aluminum.
Right.
So you'll want to use a cartridge or a converter in here. But this is around $20, low 20s.
If you really like the way the Preppy writes, and you just want something that's a little more durable,
looks a little nicer for the office or something,
this would be your ticket.
Let's see. Then we have the Platinum Cool and the Platinum Balance. I know we've done some videos on these. They're basically the Cool. Well, the Balance came first, solid color, gold trim. Then they came out with the Cool, I believe, last year, which basically translucent demonstrator version, has silver trim instead of gold. It's around the $40 to $50 price point. The nib has a little bit of spring to it, so that's kind of cool. Also a cartridge converter. Actually, every single Platinum pen is a cartridge converter. I don't think they have any piston fillers in their lineup.
Not that I'm aware.
So they're all cartridge converter, and it's all proprietary, so you have to use the Platinum converter or Platinum cartridges. So the Balance, the Cool, it's a pretty cool pen.
Can't resist saying that,
I mean, it comes out. So this is a relatively new addition to the line, but it's actually one of our favorites among our customer care team.
Yeah.
I think several of them have it as their daily writer and prefer actually writing thank you notes with it right now.
It's great in that like kind of mid-price range. The nib, you know, I wouldn't call it a flex nib, but it's soft enough where you can get some flex when you want to. Like just if you want to embellish your signature a little bit, you know, if you're trying to do like full flex all day long, it's probably
get like Spencerian.
It's a little stiff for that, but you know, you can. It's definitely got some line variation to it when you want it.
One thing I did want to mention, I was talking about the proprietary cartridges and converters.
Oh,
actually, you know what? That's not a question.
It's coming in a later question.
I'll save it. Now y'all can wonder what I'm talking about. There's, keeping on the lower price point, there's a couple brush pens. Again, these take fountain pen ink, but has a brush tip, so you can get, you know, super fine or, you know, get the thickness. This is the cheapest one. Comes with a little carded thing. It's the carbon brush pen. It's all in Japanese, but trust me, that's what it is.
And that one's really not so much a brush pen, more as it is like a felt tip pen.
A flexible felt.
It's really not like separate brush fibers.
No, this one's
it's
more
like
felt.
a marker.
But it's super cheap, so if you're like, I've never tried a brush pen before, I wonder what it's like. You just want something, you know, pretty cheap to try out. That's your best bet.
That's an option.
Once you've kind of mastered that, there's a couple options for you. They have, again, these are like the $40 to $50 price range. A couple Maki-e. It's kind of like a screen print Maki-e.
Yeah.
I mean, for $40.
It's not true like hand-painted Maki-e, but it's...
It's, you know, screen printing, but still kind of cool design. This has the white brush, so, you know.
The fibrous tip,
Fibrous tip. So there's a couple different Maki-e patterns there. And then there's a marble version, comes in a couple colors. This one has weasel hair as the tip, which, I don't know, for someone who's not like familiar with brush pens, it sounds kind of bizarre, but I guess it's
just
ideal hair
Yeah, that hair
texture.
Is really good for a brush tip.
It's very soft.
We're not like brush pen connoisseurs here, but...
If you're looking to dabble, you know, and you like fountain pen ink and you want just a little extra flair or, you know, I don't know. It's also good for practicing certain, you know, other language characters.
Yeah, a lot of artists like brush pens because you can use it to kind of get different, you know, pull different colors out of the ink and stuff like that.
Oh, you can put some water in it and kind of, you know, water wash your artwork.
Sure.
Yeah. There's also the desk pen, which I don't have in front of me, but it's an extra fine nib.
And it's really extra fine.
Really super extra fine. It's very affordable. It's what, like $12?
$12.50, I
$12.50,
think.
something like that.
$12, yeah.
We also have like a base that it can fit in. So if you don't want to keep it capped, you basically take the cap off and it fits into the base. It like kind of sits on your desk.
Kind of like you have at a bank teller, you know.
Yeah, without the chain.
Right. You can put a chain on it if you want.
I guess. But if you really, really like extra fine, and it's made to be used with the carbon ink, so like pigmented inks, even though it's extra fine, it'll hold up well, I guess,
flow-wise. Yeah, I guess they fatten that
Mm-hmm.
feed or something to make it feed through, yeah.
But yeah, it's still super fine tip. So that's pretty cool. I talked about the cool and the balance. So then we get to some of the, I'll call it more the flagship or more the more the well-known. So there's the 3776, which
that's like
that number is significant. It's the metered height of Mount Fuji.
Yes.
Is that right?
Which is the tallest mountain in Japan.
Which is where platinum is made, if you were not familiar. You know, the base model is black. It also comes in a couple other colors they released in the last couple years. There's the Bourgogne, which is a translucent...
It's a deep burgundy, yeah.
A deep burgundy, like a wine... wine
it's really
red.
good.
It is. It's got some translucence, so you can kind of see through it. And then there's also the Chartres blue, which is kind of for the stained glass cathedral thing. It's that Goulet blue. It's perfect. It's beautiful.
Technically, it's Chartres blue, but...
you know what I mean. It's that color.
They came first.
The Goulet. Of course. I'm just saying it's very fitting.
Yeah.
So this is their gold. This is where the gold nibs start. This is going to be in the upper 150 to 200. I want to say 176. List is 220 as of the time of this video.
Yeah. And these pens, they're gold nibs, but they're stiff nibs. So sometimes people associate. Most of them. Sometimes people associate gold with softness, flexibility, stuff like that. That is not the case with these pens. They do not design them that way. It's not a flaw or anything like that. They're amazingly consistent, but they are stiff. That's just how they like them.
Now, the 3776 has been around for a while. Then they came out with the 3776 Century, which basically introduced a slip and seal cap, which is also some of the same technology they have on the Plaisir. Basically, it has a fantastic seal so that your ink won't dry out in the pen. They advertise up to 2 years, which is... That's a long time. I mean, some of us forget to clean out our pens from time to time and find it, a year or two later. And
I got a whole bucket of pens over there that I need to clean out right now.
I lost a Schaefer Prelude from the DC Pen Show in 2010. I didn't find it for 2 years. It had Bay State Cranberry in it, but it eventually cleaned out.
It did. It took some work. But
I mean, Bay States take a little extra work too, just to make matters worse. I think it fell behind the sofa or it was in a bin or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they feature the cap to keep the ink from drying out. They come in a huge range of nib sizes.
Yeah.
Some haven't made their way fully into the U.S. yet. We'll talk about that later. But it's very underrated.
The whole pen line, yeah.
Yeah. I think most people just either haven't heard about it or I'm not quite sure. But
it's got a lot of positive reviews. I mean, people that actually buy them and use them love them.
Again, the stiff nib, a little bit too might not be for everybody.
Exactly. You got to know what you're getting into. But yeah.
It's not going to be scratchy to the point that you're like, I can't write with this. It's more like you get more feedback, like you feel you're writing versus like, oh, this is butter and I'm slipping all over the place.
It's kind of like more like writing a pencil, kind of like the graphite, like you feel it on the page more so than you would with like a Pilot pen, for example, which somebody asked about that in a future question, so we'll get to that in a minute.
They also have the President line. We don't currently have this on our site, but we can special order anything Platinum really. It's a bit bigger. It's got a bigger nib to it.
And the nib has kind of this cool, like Art Deco type design
like a
on it.
two-tone
thing. It's kind of neat. Writes similarly to
18 karat.
18 karat instead of 14 karat nib. So, not that really matters a tremendous deal because they write pretty similarly.
But compared to the 3776, it's a little bit,
it's not,
bit bigger.
It's not as popular. The price is kind of a significant jump.
We're looking a couple hundred.
Yeah, so for that reason, we don't carry it. It's a good pen.
Not at this time.
But yeah.
We can always get one if you want one.
Sure. I mean, I've got one and I like it.
Still around that $200 price point are some of the modern Maki-e pens. So Platinum, there's a couple other brands too, like, Pilot and Maki. They have a whole range of Maki-e pens. So, Brian, what is Maki-e for those who aren't familiar, Mr. Craftsman?
Maki-e is it's essentially a technique of hand painting lacquer. And you can do all kinds of gold dust and sparkly, fleckly kind of stuff. But
shells, engraving, all kinds
true
of
Maki-e is a Japanese craft that takes decades to be able to master. I got mad respect for Maki-e artists. But these ones are not 100% hand painted.
The modern Maki-e have a combination of screen printing and handwork.
Yeah.
They have a gold nib. These actually have a bit of spring to them. They remind me a lot of the Cool or the Balance, but in gold.
Right.
These are 18 karat.
Yeah, so they're going to be some fairly soft nibs. You can get some flexibility to them. It's going to be not quite as flexible as a Namiki Falcon would be, but close.
So the modern Maki-e is the lowest. Then you get to the Kanazawa leaf, and this that refers to the gold leaf process. This one actually has leaves on it, so it's kind of fitting.
Yeah.
But you can read all about it on Platinum's website. They have an English version, so if you go to Platinum Japan's website. But it's
another thing too about these ones. I mean, there's several different designs of the Kanazawa leaf, but the reason they're more expensive than the modern Maki-e is the modern Maki-e doesn't have any Maki-e design on the cap.
Oh, that's true.
The Kanazawa leaf has it on the whole pen cap and body. So it's just a little bit fancier, a little bit more impressive, especially if you see them. I actually, a couple of years ago when I was doing all the photography, I was getting into macro photography and I went nuts with these pens, taking pictures of these. So we've got some really good macro photography that shows this Maki-e stuff.
Absolutely. Then you start getting into
the big boys.
Well, we can keep talking Maki-e. So, this is one we have. It's called the Galaxy Maki-e. And this one you're looking,
So cool.
We're starting to get into the $500 to $1,000 price point. But this one has, it's I'll call it it reminds me of the Raiden, a vanishing point. It's tons of little tiny shells that have all been inlaid and then, all the different lacquer and work.
Yeah, it's a little abalone shell, right? That's kind of embedded in the lacquer.
It's gorgeous. You just I'll just, stare at this for a while.
It's very sparkly. It's got a lot of depth to it. looks really, really cool.
Got the 3776 nib on it.
Mm-hmm.
Just absolutely stunningly beautiful.
Yeah.
It's, I want one. Let's see. Then there are some Ebonite versions. This is the Jupiter marble. So Ebonite is a natural hard rubber. This one's got a red and black swirl pattern to it.
I don't know how natural I would say Ebonite is. It's manufactured, but...
Yeah, but it's made from elements of nature.
Sure. Technically everything is, but okay.
Yeah. So Ebonite, which is pretty cool. It has that rubbery smell.
Yeah, it smells like Ebonite.
Like
it feels
tires.
like Ebonite. Yeah, highly polished.
Then you have Celluloid. Oh, well, let me skip to this one. This is the big mama jamma here. This is a limited edition that just came out. This is list price $1,200. This is stunningly beautiful. I can't even begin to appreciate the layers
That's where you're getting
of
a true
craftsmanship that get into
hand-painted
here.
Maki-e, yeah.
Hand painted, just hours and layers and layers and layers of just, it's, I don't even have words. You just have to look at the pictures. It's stunning.
Yeah.
We'll have to do some videos to really showcase this.
Yeah, we will. We're getting there.
They're gorgeous. This one features the president nib on there, so good old big nib to go with the big pen.
Yeah.
Last year they came out with this King of Tigers Maki-e, which I was reading about this online, just the process for how they did this. I was like, oh, it's just like a black matte finish. It doesn't seem like that big a deal. Talking about how the craftsman literally has to hold his breath while applying the super fine
like dust,
basically.
To get this matte
finish. Because if he breathes, then it could blow things out of. Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And it's a very subtle pattern. Got some ruthenium trim. This is a limited collector's edition sort of thing. Then you get into celluloid. Celluloid, they don't really make a lot of pens out of this anymore because it's actually incredibly hazardous to produce.
It is. It was a kind of a derivative prior to modern plastics that came out. So back in the early 1900s, they had ebonites and stuff like that, but they didn't really have any plastics. Celluloid was an attempt at plastic that was, kind of hazardous to produce, and it was it's kind of a fickle material. Sometimes it comes out right, sometimes it doesn't. So it's a very expensive material, but it's really gorgeous.
It's absolutely gorgeous. This is based on, we have a celluloid collection. So these are based on the 3776. So the reason they're more expensive is, again, celluloid is just that incredibly difficult material to produce, to get right. It has to cure for 6 months in order to, make sure it won't fall apart or dissolve or something. I'm not quite sure all the details. But these are absolutely gorgeous. And then you have this one we've done some really cool photographs with, the Karakusa. It's a celluloid base with hand-carved, it's an arabesque pattern, I think. It's kind of like a vine with leaves and stuff. Hand-carved and then hand-painted, so inlaid with the silver paint. Yeah, if you just are glancing at the pictures, it might just seem like it's some kind of screen printing or something, but it's not. It's actually like a three-dimensional carved texture. And you can kind of feel it. They filled in with the paint and stuff, but you can feel the texture. Yeah. So just the fact that it's done by hand, then you start understanding why the pricing is the way it is. And it looks awesome. So there's a lot more. I don't have everything here. Yeah, they have a lot more of this, especially this higher end kind of stuff. They've got some sterling silver stuff. They've got all kinds of more Maki-e. All kinds of other celluloids and Maki-es. Urushi finishes. Yeah. It's incredible, the craftsmanship. Yeah. So that's where Platinum really shines. They make good, solid nibs, and then it's the craftsmanship of the ancient Japanese tradition that they bring in. Yeah, very cool stuff. So glad we were able to give you a little bit of a summary there.